Tiger style. Wu-Tang Clan ain't. Wu-Tang Clan ain't. We can't say it because Mars will kill us. All right. Hey, everybody. This is Petey from the Spin Rack, and we also have
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock.
Woo.
Tang,
Woo.
Tang.
Well, I need some. We're gonna go over the Wu-Tang Saga. It's in the second season. The second season is going on right now. You see some of the stars in there, the movie versions of the TV versions of these classes. Now, I first want to say this beforehand. Before this TV show, and I emphasis it's a TV show, came out, there's something called Wu-Tang of Mics and Men. That is a documentary. If you want to see a documentary and see the full story on the Wu-Tang, that has it covered. There've been other ones, but this is the official Wu-Tang where they hear from their own voices and some of the old video. Okay, with that said, that is out there because we're going to do some explaining of drama and dramatization and biopic that people don't seem to understand when it comes to black people in cinema and TV. We get into the TV show, which is a fictionalized sort of biopic of the Wu-Tang Clan, right? So these are similar situations, similar battles, similar stuff, but giving you the feel of what it was like back in the 90s, of what people kind of talk about with the street. When as we kids, we didn't really call it the street, we used to call it the block, that sort of thing. Before, what's the name, the West Coast turned it into the hood, all that stuff. But these are just sort of regular kids with regular struggles, and some of the stuff we see in movies. We see some of the drug stuff that they talk about in their songs, writ large. It's a TV show. I can't go, I got a prerequisite that, but since you recently watched it, can we give you any overview or however you want to start? Let's get into it. What do you say?
How much of an overview? Because we tend to do an overview and we give the whole show. So how much of an overview?
No, just say your feeling and your reaction to it. If you want to give too much a history of where these characters at, but we don't have to do that. We just say what you feel about it so far.
I regret not watching this earlier because I saw it up, and I saw Wu-Tang in American Saga. I didn't know if it was a movie, it was a series, and I was watching all this other stuff, and I waited. I regret that I waited so long to actually watch it because then I got involved with all this other stuff. So now every time I see an episode, I want to watch more, and then I got to go break out and do something else. So I had more time where I could just literally binge and watch 3-4 episodes a day, and now it's like more of a trickle thing at the end of the day. But I was looking and I was like, oh, let me try this out, and I was just taken in with the very first episode, and just follow along with it because one, it's excellent storytelling. It's excellent storytelling at the day. You got all of these guys are characters. Every single one of them are characters. You would think it would be like ODB, who's like, oh, he's gonna. No, every single one of these guys is a character. This could have been like a great fictional story if it wasn't true at the end of the day. And one of the things that really stays with me is that we already know what the end result is going to be. We know that they're going to get together, they're going to become Wu-Tang, and the effect that they're going to have on hip hop music and music, overall. And you go through the show and you wonder, like, man, with all of the obstacles that were in their way, and a good number of them that they put in their way, they were still able to get to this. I think the last one that's the hardest one is the fact that a lot of you got these guys who have to work together and don't like each other necessarily, okay, are ready to pull out on each other and have done some really foul things to each other or their families, at the end of the day, some pure blunders, on some of their parts, being taken, well, let me not say being taken advantage of by the music industry, but not understanding it well enough to manipulate it instead of being manipulated by it, which is pretty much being taken advantage of, I suppose. At the end of, but it's just been really entertaining. The casting, the acting, just really good. A whole bunch of stuff thrown in there. Let me not say thrown in there, but a whole bunch of stuff that's brought to light, rather, that I had no idea about regarding the formation of this particular group, the people who are part of it. I mean, the person who was music I would know best from the Wu-Tang Clan is the Ghostface Killer. And then I'm looking at his character on this show, and I'm like, my God, this is the same guy. This is the same guy who's made all of these records. I think he, with the exception of RZA, he might have made the most records of anybody else there. And he's got this beef with Raekwon, who's when he does his album, he's just on about every track on Raekwon's album. And then you got RZA literally begging this dude, will you please come over here? Give me some bars. Will you please come over here? Can I get some verses out of you? He's like, no, I don't care about that. All my money's in the street. And it's mind-boggling to see somebody with that much talent, somebody whose rap style, I have definitely envied that stream of consciousness rap that he's able to do. And he's at a point right here, he's like, I don't want to be bothered with this. I don't see any future in it. Amazing to see that type of characterization at the end of the day.
And I think for me, one of the things that I really connected with is trying to show the family, the American Saga part, having seen these people, these kids in their family, seeing these kids in their neighborhood, not just giving you the feel of the entire Staten Island, where they run into like the basic thing where they're on the ferry, and while they're having this war where guns about to fall out, RZA bumps into a woman, and they basically like got like he's a normal person. They pick up the stuff, help the woman that he don't know with the bag, instead of saying, F your bag, like that, like doing the basic thing, that sort of thing, where they're like, these are normal kids. And the other thing is that it's also not just even like the coming of age, because coming of age also, is usually the point where you kind of figure it out. One of the things in reality is that the 18 to 20 stage, when you first experience freedom and you kind of crash and burn, and then you got to pick, get yourself out of either credit card debt, this sort of thing. Even though their stuff is in the story is a little more heavier than that, this is kind of stuff where you try to get yourself back up on your feet, and that sort of thing that kids go through, where you first initially get in there or struggle with any struggle that you kind of have is almost like the worst thing, or even like for me as a kid, like, oh no, like someone stole these comic books, like that. Things ain't never gonna go right. Like I can't get this, like that sort of feeling, but it's kind of writ large into the dynamic of what the music is, because the music itself isn't entirely like factual, like written. I mean, obviously Ghostface in that first song that he did, where he basically told the story of his family, that's as close to reality as you can get. But it's not always like the heavy artillery that all the rappers use. It's got to be writ large. You got to build it up. But yeah, it's one of the things of really the family type of thing, having RZA and that sort of stuff, and having these other characters that aren't the rap part of it, but the background guys that we saw in of Mics and Men, which is RZA's older brother, and the person we know see his power, are these guys who are the behind the scenes people that help them get on their feet. That in the Mics and Men, they I think with Divine, they split. Like he doesn't manage the Wu-Tang anymore. Like I think that came around the what's that thing? But that's basically because of the tour that didn't work out. The tour basically kind of took the Wu-Tang off their trajectory. But this really is, I'm going to say this, my other not last thing, but my last point here is like, everyone looks at like, black TV shows or black stuff on TV or movies and say, I'm going to finally do it for real. I'm going to give you the real, how it really is. And it feels like the RZA and the people that put this together, they gave us that feel. Like you could feel some of it in some of these other things, but then it felt like it kind of went south. And this really captured what it is of being like a kid trying and not having it all figured out, but trying to kind of live your dream and having to take a regular day job where it's just like, oh, if I go to the drug thing, I'm going to wind up with 20 years. So I got to do this dumb day job that I can do in 2 hours. Nope, Divine, you got to sit here for the whole 10 hours, or 8 hours, even though you've done it in 2, like that sort of thing. Dealing with the mundane stuff of life that happens to people. So It's really, I mean, it's really something that when I started watching it, I really like, really connected with. It really was a fun story.
Yeah, I remember telling you that I'm watching this and I'm scratching my head as to how can you guys keep messing up like this and then forgetting how young they are. You know how I mean, because you think for some reason anytime I see someone and they're established, they're on music or what have you, I usually tend to think that they're older than me. And then I'm looking at this and I'm remembering these guys were probably contemporaries, not too much older, or maybe even younger, and maybe even younger in some cases. So you know, the whole situation where he gets into well, just looking at Rizzo, where he goes and he's got one foot in and one foot out of the game. Okay, he wants to do the music, but the whole drug scene is what's making money for his family. Okay, then he's he gets, but it's like every time something goes wrong for him, what do the guys do? They go back to the drugs in order to get in order to get stable once again. So all right, we came over here, we were raising bail, we were raising money, all the money's gone. Why? Because we're in this particular game. Now we're back to square one. I had all this music, I was doing. It gets stolen by Attila. I go, what do? I go to shoot Attila. Attila, of course, is bulletproof, so nothing's gonna happen. That bullet just bounced off of him. All he did was look angry. What am I gonna do? I gotta run away to Ohio. When I go to Ohio, do I try to get on with music there? No. I go back to drugs. And then I'm shooting, and then I'm going and I'm shooting somebody else, and he has to literally be taken to the brink, because he was probably, he probably, he would have done some time. He would have definitely done some time at the end of the day if the jury had thought differently about it. But he has to literally be brought to the brink at the end of the day to pull him back. But then it's the other characters as well. You got Raycon getting shot for just sitting, being close to these people. You end up being shot. And all the other stuff, the other things that happen with the other not characters, but with the other members as well. But it's I mean, it's 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 almost like a fictionalized account. But then I remember that's like a lot of the stuff that you go through as a kid, where sometimes until you mature, or at least until you recognize some of the shortcomings that you have that keep getting you into trouble, you keep doing them. You keep doing them at the end of the day, even to the point where he's in jail. He's like, no, forget the bail money. I'm just going to stay here. And then he wises up. If it was a butterfly, who knows? But then he wises up like, what the hell? I'm going to stay here? Like, no, I got to try to get out of here. To get. And then the last episode I got to was them on the ferry. And of course, that has to be heavily fictionalized. They could have met on the ferry. I don't know if it probably didn't go down like that. But you got to take some. For me, you got to take some liberties with it. And I like that liberty where they're doing it like a cowboy standoff, samurai standoff, Mexican standoff, all the thing with the eyes and everybody's standoff, so on and so forth. And but what I also liked about it was I'm listening to RZA and the way he's trying to get across to these guys with like biblical allusions and all of this type of stuff, where I'm like, okay, these guys are young. Because an adult would look at him like, what the hell are you talking about? Noah and Ark and this, that, and the other. He's like, what are you talking about at the end of the day? Adults would streamline it more. He's trying to, while he's trying to bring everybody on, he's still trying to be inspirational. He's trying to come across with some sort of higher message that's going to bring everybody on. And finally, at least with that episode, it seems that we actually do get there. I also like the fact that we get to see, and this is like a criticism I've told you with uh, TV shows or series like this or films. We usually bring in these people who are famous for making music, and then they talk about everything but the music. We don't get to hear about anything else. We'll hear about drugs and shooting and girls and all this other sort of stuff, but we never get to hear about, hey, what about the music? What actually inspired you to make this type of music? And even though it's not as much as I would care for, there still are instances in there where you're like, okay, great, this is why this song is made. This is how you got these type of beats in. I mean, even just one scene where he was looking to do something, he told the guy, turn the levels all the way up. And the guy's like, no, if I turn them all the way up, it's going to create this distortion. You're not going to be able to hear yourself. He's like, no, that's the sound that I want. And then the guy's like, oh, you want like a punk rock sound, right? He's like, yeah, exactly that. Me, I really vibe with that. Love music. And I love to hear about how people go about their process in creating it, as much as I love hearing the song, especially if it's a good song. So those type of things right there, when I can get them, make it even more rewarding that you see for the series. But and again, some of these things are just so wild. I mean, they haven't spent that much time on ODB, But just that sequence where the guy's rolling up on him with the shotgun, he's turning around, snatching the shotgun, firing it. I'm the one man, I'm the one man army. I was just like, this is wild. But you could see it happening with this guy, knowing what you do know about him, based on his career and the stuff that you might have read on. It's just a wild story. But you get all these cats together, everybody talented, everybody talented to some extent. And let me just clarify that. Not that anybody was necessarily more talented than the other. Oh, you know what? I can't even go that far. You had guys on the mic who were obviously good at what they did. Okay, and then some people went further with that than others. I guess that's the best way to put it. But just to see that formation at the end of the day is cool, and they're savvy enough to realize, hey, we got something we can do this for a while. We can get a couple seasons, 3 seasons out of this. We went a whole season without the team forming, and they didn't have to do that. They could have just done a montage of people meeting up, and literally with music playing in the background, and it looks like they're angry at 1 second, and then we cut to the next scene and they're hugging each other and like they're giving each other a pound. They're like, all right, let's go ahead and do this. They didn't have to map it out this way, but the story is that good, and it's that rich that yes, it works. This is stuff that I'm realizing they should have done with characters with people like James Brown or Elvis Presley. You really need this much time. You really need this much time to tell that type of story. Especially with guys in this industry who are probably meeting other people. Even just little bits like, hey, you pop in one day and Eric Sermon's in the studio, okay, or you're on the road with these cats from Tommy Boy. You're doing this presser with Tretch, or rather, you're doing radio with Tretch. All of these things help to really give it full scope, especially the parts where they're listening to music and you hear what the songs are that, okay, these were the big songs that, were big for them and what they were listening to. And it resonates. Oh yeah. Like, songs I was listening to as well. Like I told you that bass line from Deep Cover. And that baseline was ubiquitous. Everybody loved it so much that even musicians, we would go and play, and we weren't doing hip hop, we're doing rock and roll, but we were working that into segues because as soon as people heard it, everybody got hyped for it. Everybody heard it, even if they were coming there to listen to a different sort of music. Everybody had heard that tune at one point or another, whether they were walking across the street and they heard somebody playing it in their auto, or they heard it, somebody's, some playing from something. Everybody knew it. So it was, it's really cool to say, okay, great. Those were the songs of the time. Those are the things that were really resonating and they fit in here. And as good as that stuff was, we know that we have more stuff to look forward to. We know that we have more stuff to look forward to in terms of the music that they're going to produce. I thought the best commentary so far, and I'm not certain how she's going to work her way back into it, but the woman who's saying, "Oh, I managed them," and she's never even met them. And the description, she has, you got to listen to this track. You have to listen to it. Everybody's cutting on this track, and there's no chorus. It's like being outside in a cipher. I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's great musical analysis of what was going on with that particular group and what they were bringing to the table. They were a group totally different than all the other groups that had preceded them.
Yeah, I think it's like all. I mean, I agree with all of your points, and it's one of the things I go to when I was saying about family and neighborhood is that like having, well, to sort of qualify, because I want to, because there's a lot of thing of where they ask, hey, Inspector Deck, did this happen? And then, as like, say, if you wrote a story about me about the spinner rack, and then I see you, you have me as the calm person. I'm like, I'm not the calm person. See those times I yelled, and then you amount all the times I yelled is not really that much. But your situation would be right, but at the same time, it's like, nah, that's not me. I'm just some belligerent person to you. That's sort of like, or I'm just someone who's quiet at a church mouse or something like that, or the other side. And it's just like, let's see if we get the feel of these people. Like what you were saying about like ODB, like the saying like some of his thing is a little more like the Drunken Master. So where you get to more humor and you don't try to play it straight, because basically you would have some interesting stuff, but we would have to then, all right, let's factor in not only like the Wu was trying to get him an album deal. I think Big Daddy Kane was trying to get him something, that sort of stuff. It's like you're bogging down the story. You're going too far. It's just like, or the same like Malcolm X. Like Malcolm X, the movie is a 3 hour piece, but we know that he has parents. We don't know that he had a large family, and we don't know that his older sister was a benefactor at this time. So one of the things that you want to get to and what they talked about is have the spirit of these guys come out, so we would get the feel of it. So sometimes they would let Denzel sort of just let the spirit go through him, and then he would try to give you something similar to those lines. And not they're not doing that where you take the actual life and then just do it exactly, but they're definitely growing. But you get the layers of saying like Dennis or D Lover after he robs Powers' family's like what is it, like his store. He comes back there later and he's talking to them, and he just has a moment with the father that he robbed because he's been remorseful about this thing that basically caused this rift, and he's connecting with him more than Power. This thing that happens, where I've seen it, where you have your friend, you at some point you get, your parent is annoying to you, but at the same time you bring the people you grew up with, and they're like, running with your father, and you're all adults, and you're just like, oh, I want to hang out with, with Mr. Barton, or I think I'm not sure if they call it. I don't think my friends called him that at that period. So it's one of those things where you had those layers of that. You had the reverse of kids going to, or like 20-year-olds or 18-year-olds going to the parents' houses, and then either I think Dennis's mother not really saying anything to RZA, and then the other side of Dennis going to RZA's house, and basically she talks to them like they're all his kids. Dennis, you got to take care of them too. Dennis, you make something out of yourself too. Yes, yes, Miss Biggs. Like that sort of thing. Those sort of moments, and to give you the because it's like the Murphy's Law in every TV show, especially any drama. You don't always get to the prize. It's always Murphy's Law hitting into you. But this is a nice way of doing, like the saying that the crime doesn't pay without hitting you over the head with it. Where you have these characters that are, for reasons, some of them for struggles in it, for like Shah, for Raekwon's character, it's just sort of like a turn that he decided to do that put himself at odds. Now they say he wasn't, but that's what happens. Same with Power, where he had his parents in the home, and at the same time he went the other way, where you have other people who have a hard, like we have Divine, who kind of didn't have that and was, utilizing the money to pay for the house. Now they set up that, but they didn't leave it alone at that point, where they're just like, okay, he needs money to pay for the family. When Divine gets out of jail, he's like, we're supposed to be bigger. We're supposed to be this, and you guys have effed it up. And they're like, what do you mean, Vine? Everything's paid for. What more do you want to do? It's like, that's what I want to see when you finally, say to someone that how much drugs, how much do you need to survive? And most of the time, that's where it gets lost. And I think something my father would say, with the Divine having to say he used drugs to basically get a lighter sentence, where he said no, he wasn't going to do this. Or when RZA was in jail and he's like, just forget it. I don't, use that for the family. Like that's what my father called having pride in your pride, and like not looking at the best way for the situation. And it's just like that. Some of the storytelling that's in there, as you said, is something that we get from time to time, but really have this in this package, and it keep paying off for us. And then having the fantastic elements like "Oh Dirty Bastard," but after taking, like, someone giving you an advice, and the advice is right, but it's not. You can't always practically use it, and that's the interesting thing, where you're just like saying the advice is good, I'm going to go use it. Next thing he gets beat down again. And then the next time he's on this totally, not to say, I know because I seen "Old Dirty Bastard" in when he performed, and like I stepped back from the crowd because I'm just like, yo, this dude, I don't know, he's like grabbing the mic, and as I thought, he threw the mic up in the air and went into the crowd, and I'm just like, see, I've seen this guy do this stuff before. I don't. I'm staying far away. I'm doing the classic real New Yorker. When you see something going down, you pack up, you get out of there. You don't watch the action. You're like, nah, I know how this goes. No, nothing stray my way. But it's like really having those layers, and that's one thing that you want to have in these stories, where you have these layers of characters either growing or even like Shotgun. He's the guy who basically wasn't in the streets. He was under other people's roof, but basically he had a job. He was trying to do the was it lacrosse and stuff like that. But the next thing you know, because of injury on the job, and of course the way jobs, and I've seen jobs not cover the situation, they just moved on. And then I guess as a kid he didn't know how to put forth the thing to do workman's comp, or even they had him in the contract where that could happen, and this whole thing gets thrown to the left. So just many layers as you see these characters. But I guess we've gone on for a while. Is any one of these characters you want to go through or talk about while we're here? We have talked about it. Any other characters you want to speak on?
Oh, that'd be, oh man, we could do a show on each one. This is,
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
even like Old Dirty Bastard, I think gets he doesn't get as much screen time as RZA or Ghostface Killer, but you could literally just do an episode on him with the bits that you've got right there. And there's just like I just find it, again, I find it amazing that these guys had all this stuff going on before, especially since a lot of these guys would rhyme about drugs, this, that, and the other, but they weren't necessarily in the game. They may have seen it or knew other people, but they weren't necessarily doing all of that stuff. And then, I got cats over here who, Ghostface Killer, if you had told me he was doing all this, I would have shook my head like, huh? What? No, this guy probably spent most of his time in ciphers, rhyming, this, that, and the other. And you're looking at it, this guy, he's robbing somebody for a fake gold watch. What? So all this is just like, wow, it's just like to really, when you're getting there with it. And then the bigger thing is, again, the beef that they have with each other, and somehow they're still able to get past it. So, we can get, so we can get the group together, as we know. It's just it's a lot there, but it's a lot of fun. It's great storytelling. It's great storytelling. I think they realize that we got a really big story here. Literally all the stuff that you would have on Freytag's pyramid. Okay, all of that. Okay, and right now, we're still in the rising action. We're still in the rising action at the end of the day. But it's been a lot of action. Even. I won't say that, again, I'll go back to ODB. I wouldn't say that he's a three-dimensional character at the end of the day, because for the most part, he's been comic relief. He's been put there as comic relief. But even then, you still want to see more of this guy. You still want to see more of this guy at the end of the day. I remember when I found out, previous to him being with Wu-Tang, Genius had this tune out called Come Do Me. Okay, I remember that tune. This girl I knew, she was like, what? She was listening to it. She was like, come do who? Not you. She was all, she just was lacing him for that whole thing. And then later on, he's on Wu-Tang. You listen to the verse and everything. You're like, whoa, man, Genius. I was like, whoa, Genius? Come do me? That's the same dude? So and to really get an understanding of how music works, where these guys are doing this pop stuff first, and they're trying to we're trying to build your audience with like a pop tune first, and then we can come over here. And these guys like, no, we don't need to do that. We can go straight to that. Okay, we can go straight to this, we can go straight to the stuff that we really want to do. And there is an audience out there for it who wants to hear that at the end of the day. Because that whole We Love You, Raheem, I never heard that tune. Never heard that tune, never saw that video or anything of that nature. And then, but if you had told me that the same guy, it was the same thing. I know RZA and I know his work, but I know his work from, quite honestly, I didn't listen to Wu-Tang when they came out. I had heard tunes here and there from, say, Ghostface, whose music I really, whose music I liked, some Old Dirty Bastard, and then maybe some tracks here and there, but it was like through osmosis. I was out someplace, somebody else was playing it, but I never actively pursued it. So now if I would have listened to a tune and I was like, oh, that was them, that's how I would come across at the end of the day. But I knew how much they resonated with everybody else. and then to to come over here and get the music. So, but the stuff that I knew from RZA, I knew more of his music from film work that he had done, like Ghost Dog, and when he did that film, the man with the iron fist, that type of stuff. So for me, this is pretty. It's just cool to learn more about them and understand why it was that everybody else was really, really vibing with them when they came out.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's one of those things. I think musically, I did. I mean, I was when that first thing came out there, and I was hanging out in Brooklyn, and it was just like it wasn't like you didn't even have to have a cipher. It was like listening to that "Protect Your Neck" was like the cipher. But I think before that, obviously, I heard the Genius, and then I heard I did well. I didn't. I saw both of those videos. That's why I saw those videos, and then on the radio, Raheem had another song which was "Sexcapades," which I liked, and I was like, and it was a lot faster. It had a sample you probably know, and it was just like it was upbeat. It was funny, and he did say, which I didn't understand at that point, my Wu-Tang slang, the capture a brain, that sort of thing in there already. So it was something that was you could see where they talk about him having this in mind, and and I think this because there was other show on Netflix which was the Get Down, and they were trying to do the karate with the with being in the hip hop, like the early hip hop sort of thing, and it was a little too much of the mysticism type of thing, whereas this kind of gave you the karate movies and this is the end. And then now we'll try to show you the karate movies in different instances instead of having people kind of, say what we would say, like, redub what's going on there. Oh, he's going to do this, that, and the other to him, this, that, and that sort of thing. The reverse is happening where they've redone, where they've made new scenes to give you that feel. So it's one of the, it's interesting because yeah, musically it was really big because it was with the whole East Coast where people talk about the East Coast and they say music money wise it was not money there, but like these guys are going gold. They're big buzz around them. Hot 97 just happened, so they're getting picked up by Hot 97 and Hot 97 having the Wu Tang down there all the time. But before that, it was only like they were on the stretch in Babito, which was like hip hop center before Hot 97. So it's one of those things where it's interesting to have that, experience that as not a kid because I was in my early 20s. Then to kind of see like, yeah, it feels like what it was like in, hanging out in the city with these guys. And the thing when you have beef with somebody and then at some point you guys figure it out some point later. I mean, none of my beef led to like, it was a lot of fights, but there's things that people felt that were pretty heavy, and then somehow work it out later that you forgot that there's this thing that if you were to talk about it, it'd probably be a friendship ending discussion, or the other side of. Because I didn't really recognize until we started talking now. Because I always think of these other rappers that talk about having a free house, but like when we were growing up, a lot of people were at my house, and not even just. I mean, there was only a couple of actual dinners that they had. Maybe like it was just a handful, but most of the time, outside of maybe getting a snack or something from the fridge or some iced tea, like people would be over, and like my friend Xavier, when he was out partying all night, he would just come over. He wouldn't even hang out. He'd just come sleep on the couch. No one would do the water thing or that stuff. When I found out people did that stuff to people when they go to sleep, I was like, yo, there's all those other times. Maybe they did it and they didn't tell me. He was like, well, we never did that to Xavier. And he's like, he'd just come over. I got a picture of him. He'd come over, watch TV for 2 seconds, and fall asleep. Then, like, I don't know, an hour later, all right, yo, I'll see y'all. He's like, was that a visit? Like that sort of thing, where it's like that feel of people just coming to your house and saying what's up. So yeah, I mean, we can see how much
We could
this.
do a show on that.
Oh man, connecting to the way this sort of thing, even the sibling stuff of them fighting over, the younger one having the reins. And I say I've been through that too, where it wasn't the reins, but I was struggling with money in school, and my brother wasn't going to school for like 2 seconds, but he was working two jobs, and he took me to see, what was that movie, Ricochet. And I was sitting in the movie in Manhattan. I'm like, yo, I gotta get my life together. I got my younger brother take me to the movies. Like, this is the lowest. Like, they like, like with Martin, you're like, oh, I fell off, man. And you're like, I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't even think I was 21. Yo, I fell off. It's like the world is ending. And then somehow now it's like, wow, someone didn't have a good view of what actual reality was at that time. He's like, I'm struggling with girl, and my life is just over.
Well, that goes to that's another thing they do well, and it's the themes they get thrown in there. And the best themes are all, the best themes are well, themes are supposed to be universal, but the best ones are the ones you can just lock into. I mean, the overall one, at least for right now, is just somebody having a dream and what you have to do to try to get that dream realized, and how hard it is to get somebody to share that dream, especially if you need them in order for that dream to be realized. It's hard being visionary, and you're trying to look, come with me on this journey. It's gonna work out, but you got to trust me on the whole thing. And really, a lot of stuff, like ask somebody to walk into a dark room and just hold your hand, and you're like, huh? And you're like, huh? No, I got to be able to see where I'm going. I don't know. I don't trust you. You almost got arrested. I can't put all this faith and trust in you, but the person with the vision is correct at the end of the day, and that trust does have to be surrendered in order for everything to happen. So it's I mean, between the great theme, the dramatic irony, the sorry, between the great theme, the dramatic irony, the characterization, wonderful storytelling. It's just been a real lot of fun, just to watch this, and then the music on top of it is a plus.
I think I haven't really talked much about the music, but one of the funniest scenes is when he's banging at some sort of like power thing, and they're like, "Yo, what are you doing?" Yo, that's gonna be the opening to the song. It's like some of the elements in there, and then him constantly talking about how we're gonna put these guys together, and people just like, nah, I think, yeah, you're gonna put me now. You're gonna have me one of those Park Hill dudes. He's like, yeah, I was thinking, they gave a song. You two might be good on a song together. Like, what's the name when Shaw had lost it, and he had finally had it with D, and he was like. He said, what's the name? Reza said, yo, it's complicated. Yo, what does that even mean, man? He's like, I wasn't shooting at, I was shooting at the idea of you. It's so, it just, I mean, this thing is cracking me up. It's pretty solid, and not being in such a way where, no, like when you go to the Attila scene, people are like, all right, this is the fiction. This Attila, this monster, this is the closeout. This is like in Dear Dawson, we keep it comic books. Like it was I heard the right pronunciation of Mazzucchelli. I don't know if I got it right this time, but he talked about that Nuke in the Born Again series was not supposed to be in there. But that's a big climactic character for the end, right? So Attila is like the Nuke, right? And I know people might like get this reference in television, but it's like the big monster at the end. And then at the same time, the moment is RZA taking it, and then that sort of thing. The moment is more the real man who always has to do the action, D Lover, and sees RZA's sister. He's like, yo, what you doing here? And he's like, yo, get out of here. And she's like, I'm pregnant. And he's like, and that's the thing. Like, these guys, I don't know them from anything. They're playing Wu-Tang characters, and they're performing, and they're giving you that emotion. And that's what I'm gonna end on. Like, these guys, like a Shah with his mother at church, like that sort of thing. And like, these moments are stuff that are gonna be classics. And even if the Wu is upset that they're not all superheroes in here. Oh, damn it! I said I was going to end on that. But one of the things I found interesting that who was it? The writer Alan Davis, who did Excalibur. He was taking over the writing of it, and he said They were saying, well, what are you going to do differently for these characters, different from what Chris Claremont did? And he's like, well, not too much differently, but when you're dealing with a group, it's like, I think he said it was like a Chinese puzzle where at times you don't get to do a full three-dimensional character. Someone takes on an aspect of the personality that you play with, and then at some point you try to add more to it, but just you can't always try to like make these things where like everybody has this fully well developed thing, and it's hard to do, especially with a cast like this. But you can have moments where you have D, who's as hard as Edge, had this moment where he has this moment where you see the emotion on his face, where his life changed right on his face. And that's the thing we need to see when you have these moments where you're like, he cares for her. All these moments where they can't say anything. That's the thing, not the thing we should be killing ourselves over of saying, oh, he's selling drugs. Oh, he robbed that guy. He did, this is just all the like. Look, look at he don't have it figured out. But I'm trailing off because I got too. I enjoyed those things a little too much. But yeah, it's just a powerful sort of story. It's very enjoyable. They do a lot of cross cutting on different things to bring in different things in there to kind of try to somehow work in the music. And as Cal was saying, they also some of the elements of the first series we haven't seen, play off yet in this series, this season. So it might pop up later, but it's interesting where they left off, where they were trying to get in touch with Bobby, and it didn't. He was off to Ohio, so it was kind of like, oh, they could have made it right there, and then but that's they showed them as a group like doing the song. They're like, oh, this season is it's over. Then they're like, nope, back at square one again, like the DMV. You got to go start from the beginning. So, any last words on this?
I almost forgot to chime in about Ghostface Killer's brothers, who steal the show every time they get any screen time. That part where they're watching the movie and they're laughing. He's like, "Oh, you think that's funny? You think that's funny?" And he's trying to. I'm gonna come over here and He's trying to drop some higher level stuff on them, and they pause for a second and they both crack up. He's like, "Boo hoo hoo, go cry to Shuri." They come over there and say, "Hey, how do you know that's his whip?" "I keep my ear to the streets." I'm laughing.
Well, the thing is, that's the testament to the storytelling that they have these things, but they're regular kids. They're regular kids that watch something. The stuff that you like, that you're like, I'm putting you on the stuff I like, and then they're trashing it, and it's like, yo, it's like I think those two guys need an Emmy like right away because they really. Then when you get to the second season and the other one that does more of the talking, he, he's more street in this still, but not in the street in a way where he's like selling drugs. He just know he's like any of the other kids, So it's really they're really that's kind of what really hooked me into the show when I saw that, and I was like, I remember it was like I was like this. I couldn't even. I had a hard time watching that song that he did where he talked about his family and the roaches and the cereal and a lot of Wu-Tang videos of CNC. I got me a shorty, it got me a 40 without the last part visualized. So it's like, oh no, they're gonna visualize all of this, but then they kind of really, gave us that family feel, that sort of thing. So it's yeah, I thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Well, no, I think a lot of people would assume because they have muscular dystrophy that that they're not kids, like they're not like teenage boys who are pretty much desensitized to all types of violence. Like, oh, that looks hilarious at the end of the day. Like, no, these guys should be on this different level. Like, no, they're still sitting over there with fades, rocking the same gear, listening to the same music at the end of the day. The mentality is not going to be too much, and they're still boys. So it comes across as real fun because again, it's real. So that's why. But again, that's why it works. So that's again why it works so well. Does it? I mean, just I think it's got. Did it get nominated? I think it got nominated for a few Emmys. I hope it gets all of them. I hope it gets every single one it was nominated for, if only for. And I've been leaning into this heavily recently, but if only for the storytelling. I've just seen too many things that are leaning on character, where I'm just supposed to like this because I like the character or whatever the character moments on. And there's a lot more that you get from good storytelling and just as opposed to I'm just trying to sell this particular individual, which is one of the reasons why I'm probably not going to like the latest James Bond movie. But that being said, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the thing we talked about before this is going into. I'm gonna say, well, then I guess I was in 18 to 20, something like that. Well, no, I guess it's 19. My 19-year-old crush, Erica Alexander, who I met at Comic Con a couple years ago. She's killing it in the performance, and not just being the mother, being, kind of talking about Jerome as was a Woodbine, yeah, like that dude.
Bokeem
Bokeem,
Woodbine.
Bokeem, because I knew I was going to say Hakeem. I knew I was going to say that. Thank you. Bokeem Woodbine, like the moment where she's talking about him is like whatever, but when they had the scene where he's trying to warm back up to her,
Yeah, you
and
saw the
she,
look on her face. That look was
yes,
that was great acting. She was like, Jerome.
and when he's like baby, and he's like, and she's like no, she's saying no, but the reaction is like, well, I'm not ready right now. I'm into this, but I still need some more trust out of you. But there is interest here, like that sort of thing of
See,
that
I know
energy.
what you wanted to say, even though we're not supposed to say it anymore. Her lips are saying no, but her eyes are saying yes.
And he is respectfully, as we have to do. He's doing a respectful thing, but basically her character is, she's been solid in the thing of how the mafia works, where she works for these guys, and then of course it wasn't even her sister's dating this guy that she did get some money out of, but you know this guy who's related to them, get them from some money, and they're like, well, he was dating her. You guys got to pay. And it's just like, what? So it's like that sort of level of, how the mob works, where they're just like, well, we can't get our family, so let's just put it on you guys, and the interest and all this other stuff, and all this stuff goes out the window, where it kind
I'm
of
not
tells
taking
you,
the mob side on the whole thing, but the whole thing is anybody beats them, everybody thinks they can beat them. So the story has to be this guy, tried to beat us out of money and ended up dead. So that's what happens, when it goes through. But I don't know. I looked at that and I was like, that's pretty messed up, because good and well, she had nothing to do with it. She's been working for you X amount of time and so on and so forth. And the best you can do is to keep this guy from beating her up right now. That's the best that you could do with the whole thing. And they're like, if I don't get my money by tomorrow, it's like, oh, come on, where's she gonna get this money? Where's she? She
mm-hmm.
works in this restaurant. Where's she gonna get the money? But again, I even loved it when she went to go play the number, and the next day she didn't win. And I was like, oh man, I was like, so what the hell? What the hell's gonna happen? And then who is it? It was Jerome to the rescue, and I was really happy about that, because too many times these things come on, and the guy comes on, and he's selling her all of this bull. He's selling all of this malarkey at the end of the day. And then she's just like, and then he came over here like, no, Jerome's like, no, I got it. I handled it. She's like, Jerome, you took care of everything? And you see the look on her face too. She's like, Jerome, wherever you want to go, I'm going with you. You want to move to the moon? I'm going with you, Jerome.
Well, before he said that, he's like, "I'm not going anywhere until you say like you're going with me." And then he did the cheesy guy thing of, "I'm not going to react." And I was like, "That's a real dude." Like I didn't come up with anything better, so I'm just gonna stay still. I was like, he's actually doing it. That's what when you don't have nothing, you do something like that, and she of course.
It's always good to have. What was that thing we were just watching? We were just watching that trailer for, what was that? Blood Teeth or something? Night.
Yeah, like night teeth.
Yeah, we were just doing that. What did the girl ask him? The girl goes and asks him, what would you do if you only had one night left to live? And he's like, he doesn't know what to say. You're supposed to look back at the girl and say, with you?
Yes. Yes. That said, the actor from that, there's another actor that was in Wu-Tang. There's a lot of young talent that should just keep shining from this. And there's a lot of talent that's already been doing their thing, like Bokeem Woodbine and Eric Alexander, that need to keep with I'm saying this is gonna be it. This is the last thing of the people your best friend leaving town. And then when Shotgun comes, it's like, y'all leaving? like that sort of feeling where I had, well, it was different for me because, all of my friends, I've seen when people come over for the summer and, and people have this emotional thing when people leave and that sort of thing. And when me and my brother, we were packing up to leave and everyone knew we were leaving. But then for that day, it was the hardest thing. And that we broke down and telling our friends we had to go, but everyone was very light about it. And we'd seen people cry before, so it was kind of a tough thing to do where no one kind of had their breakdown like me and Colin did. But then and then I think I had a couple of other cries back in there, and I was all teared out. I was totally all teared out, right? So I was talking with Dennis and Xavier all the time. And then one of those times I call up Xavier and I'm talking about blah, 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 blah. And he breaks down on the phone. And I'm like, I had an experience. It was like, it's tough because I'd already, like, I don't have any left. But I'm just like, I'm just here. But it's just like, it was good to have that sort of moment, like the moment we see Shotgun with your friends. Like, you were important to the people on the block, that sort of thing. So, yeah, it had all those layers. And having RZA and Divine talk about, I think, it seems like Jerome he's going to handle things. He's handling things this time. And, having, their younger brother being able to see like wanting their younger brother to have that, that's the really part of understanding, where it could be a jealousy thing where they're like, no, the more important thing is our younger brother. They're giving him a home and like a father and mother in the house, like that sort of thing. So that is my last thing. Thank goodness I didn't. I'm sorry, Erica. We got it in there. Bokeem, we people. So we're sorry you came late, but you're killing it too.
Well, since
And
we tried to end this 4 times, we'll leave it here. I'm not gonna add anything on. Great series. If you're not watching it, you're missing out, but it's not too late. You can get on board. It's on Hulu. Okay, you will not be disappointed. It's a great bit of television. Go watch it.
Spinnerack,
Out.
Wu-Tang or not? We're really out for this time. We're really out.